let me just see. How do I find it? Who's the host?
So go to participants. No, click on the main part. Yeah. What was that thing? What is the other host?
No, I don't want to be the host. I want Heck Films to be the host.
So he has to go, okay, attendees, click on attendees. Now you can click on more to see that. Right, so you can make someone a panelist. Tell them to join.
No, but they've joined. And
they're not on yet.
Rabbi, you need to make us host again.
But I don't know why this keeps happening.
Host or panelist?
Host.
Host your panelist.
So how do you make them host?
How do I make him
I don't know
host?
why.
How do I make you host? Why does it? I've never had this before. I don't even see you as an attendee anymore. You're a panelist.
There's nothing else.
No, there's 3 panelists, and you're not one of them.
We renamed ourselves Chabad.
Oh, that's one. Let's click on panelist.
Yeah, where's
Yeah.
panelists?
There, go there. That's them there.
Are you with a C? Okay. Please. Okay, and then what do I do? More. Make host. Can we co-host or host?
Host.
Host.
Oh, okay. Hold on 1 second. Cancel. Make you host. Make. Eddie, come help me here. Make host.
There we go. Good job.
But the problem is my computer keeps you.
You're really good to. You're doing it here.
I can't go. I've got to stay here. It's too dangerous.
So you're not going to come to the show. So
Rabbi,
I'm
you
just
need
set
to
up
mute
the
your
Two more good. And you can have mute.
Guys, are you good there? Greg? What's Greg's surname?
Good Yom Tov. Today is Yud Aleph Nissan, when we are celebrating the Rebbe's birthday. It's interesting that there's a letter from the Rebbe that the Rebbe wrote on Yud Aleph Nissan. And this goes back in 1956. And the Rebbe writes something there unbelievable. And I'm going to quote. This is in the Igros Kodesh of the Rebbe, volume 12, on page 414, Taf Yud Daled. And the Rebbe writes as follows. Miyoim holchi lecheder. From the day that I started going to cheder. Cheder means where the little children learn. Ve'oid koidem lozeh. And even before that, which means at a very young age. Hischil lehisrakim bedimyoini. It started forming in my mind, in my imagination. Tziyur geula hasida. The image of what it's going to look like when Mashiach is going to come at the final redemption. Geulas am Yisrael mi golusei ha'achron. The Geula, the redemption from this last Golus. And the Rebbe continues on. When everything in the world will be very clear, we will understand why we had to go through this Golus and finally go out of Golus. But then the Rebbe adds, Ukechelik mi Geula zu. And as part of this Geula, of this redemption, Yihye nasi ze melech. There's going to be a nasi, and which means a prince, the nasi, which is going to be the king who is going to take the Yid out. Which means, and the Rebbe continues on and on explaining what all the things that are going to happen at the Geula, which means that the Rebbe in this letter, he spelled out very, very clearly his agenda, that there are two issues. One of them is the nasi, the melech, and the other one is the Geula ha'asida. What the world is going to look like when Mashiach comes. These are the two things that are the message for our generation. As soon as the Rebbe came to America in 1942, the previous Rebbe gave the Rebbe several institutions that the Rebbe was supposed to run, take care of, and one of them is called Machane Yisrael. And many people ask, what is this Machane Yisrael? And the answer is, we learn every single day the Hayom Yom, which is a book where the Rebbe wrote for every single day a message. In the back of the Hayom Yom, the Rebbe has a description of what is Machane Yisrael. This was back in 1942. Machane Yisrael, it says that who is the Nasi of Machane Yisrael? The Rebbe. It was founded by the previous Rebbe. What is the mission statement of Machane Yisrael? To have an effect on all the people, that they should strengthen Yiddishkeit, Judaism, fulfilling Torah, mitzvahs, and also to encourage Yidden to do tshuva and lefarsem ha'emes, and to publicize the truth. Asher le'alter le'tshuva, le'alter le'giula shlema, al yedei Mashiach tzidkenu. That through tshuva, we are going to go out of this golus. From 1942, this was the agenda, that we are going to get out of this golus in our generation. And one of the things that the members of Machane Yisrael, all the people are the members of this movement, one of the things is called Mishnayos Baal Peh. What is called today Mivtzoim. One of the first Mivtzoim was Mishnayos Baal Peh, that people should learn Mishnahs by heart, Mishnayos. And so this way they will say Mishnayos when they're in the house, when they're in the street, when they're in the store, when they're in the subway, and this will purify the air. Someone asked the Rebbe, what does Mishnayos Baal Peh, what does Mishnayos have to do with the concept of going out of Golus with Mashiach? And the Rebbe responded a very, very long letter where he explains the idea of where the Rebbe explains the idea of Mishnayos, where the Rebbe explains the idea of Baal Peh, of knowing it by heart, and etc. And then, and I'm quoting from the first volume of the Rebbe's Igros Kodesh, a powerful line. Oid amru chachameinu. Our chachamim tell us, what is the connection of Mishnayos and going out of Golus? Says the Rebbe, he brings from the Arizal. Keshedonin oise yasa odom legehenim. When a person goes up there and he's judged, most people are judged to go to Gan Eden. Some, unfortunately, are judged in another direction. So when the person goes to the other direction, he cries out for help to every single one of the shvatim, of the tribes. And he says, Shiatzileyu, they should please save him from there. Ve'ein koil ve'ein oine. But there is no response. Ukeshekoire le Asher, but when he calls to the tribe of Asher, Meishiv le Asher, Asher responds, Karasam yomecha Mishnah. Did you ever learn a Mishnah in your life? Im oimer loihein, if he says yes, miyad moitzi oisei mi Gehenim b'schus ha-Mishnah. He right away, Asher takes him out from Gehenim in b'schus of this Mishnah. And the Rebbe says, and it's very clear the connection between Gehenim and Golus, because they each they're interchangeable, and the Rebbe brings a whole bunch of sources for that, which means that we see that Asher says, if you have one Mishnah, you're getting out of that situation. And here we see something unbelievable. The day of Yud Aleph Nissan is one of the days that we read the Nisim. In the month of Nissan, from the first day until the 12th and part of the 13th, we read the Nasi of every single day. Who is the Nasi that we read on Yud Aleph Nissan? Nasi Livnei Asher. It is the Nasi of Asher. Why? Because the job of Asher is to take the Yidden, get them out of Golus, and this is the idea of Nasi Livnei Asher. So we see that the Rebbe's agenda was, from the beginning, from when he started, that to work on the concept of getting all the Yidden to understand the idea that our agenda of this generation is to go out of Golus. And that's why he started with Mishnayos Balpeh, and that was in 1942. Later, after 1950, the Rebbe accepted the Nesius of Lubavitch. Within the first few years, the Rebbe started, for example, the idea of giving out, that people should give out matzah before Pesach, that all the Yidden should have matzah shmura, not just regular matzah, matzah shmura. Later in 1967, the Rebbe initiated what's called Mivtza Tefillin, the idea of getting every single Yid to put on tefillin. This was connected to the 6-Day War. About a week or two before the 6-Day War, everybody was very afraid of what's going to happen to Eretz Yisrael. It was a very tough time. The one who took the leadership was the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said, we have nothing to worry about, because the Torah says that Vero kol amei haaretz ki shem Hashem nikra lecha veyaru mimeka. When the nations of the world will see Hashem's name on the forehead of the Jewish people, they will fear the Jewish people. Says the Gemara, where is Hashem's name on the forehead? Eilu tefillin sheberosh. This is the tefillin that go on the head. And since then, thousands, hundreds of thousands, and perhaps millions of Yidden started putting on tefillin. After a few years, approximately in 1974 and then 75, the Rebbe started with more and more mivtzaim. The Rebbe started the idea of Mivtza Torah, to encourage every single Yid to learn Torah. Continued with Mivtza Tefillin. Then the Rebbe requested to start working on mezuzah, that every single Jewish home should have a mezuzah. And even if the house has a mezuzah, that mezuzah should be checked. It should be every Elul if possible, or at least every couple of years. Then the Rebbe came out with a Mivtza of Sfarim, that every single Jewish home should have Jewish books. Then the Rebbe came out with a Mivtza of Neiros Shabbos Kodesh, that the girls and women should light Shabbos candles, even the women who do. But if there are girls who don't, even the girls should light Shabbos candles. And since then, hundreds of thousands of people, women and girls, started lighting Shabbos candles, and many homes became more Shabbos observant because of the mitzvah of Neiros Shabbos Kodesh. Then the Rebbe came out with the mitzvah of kashrus, to see to it that homes should eat only kosher. Then the concept of taharas hamishpacha, of family purity. Then the Rebbe came out with the mitzvah of avas Yisrael, of making sure to love every single person. Then the Rebbe came out with another mitzvah, which is every single Jewish child, and then also adults, should have a letter in a Sefer Torah. This will reunite all the Jewish people. Then the Rebbe started with the children to give them 12 passages of Torah, and from Maimore Razal, that the children should learn all these passages. Then the Rebbe started the idea that everyone should learn some Rambam, Maimonides, because this way we learn the whole Torah, and this way everybody becomes united. And ultimately, the mitzvah of Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach, to see to it that the whole of mankind, which is also the non-Jewish people, should follow the 7 Noahide laws, and this way we gather all the people, we have all the people getting ready to get out of this Golus and go straight to the Geula. And this is the agenda of the Nasi of Asher, which is what happens on Yud Aleph Nissan, which is the Rebbe's birthday. Therefore, since on the day of a birthday, it is the minhag of Chabad to say a kapitel Tehillim, a verse, a chapter from the Tehillim, from the Psalms of King David, of David HaMelech. There are 150 chapters. So if a person, let's say, turned 13 years old, he says chapter 14 because he's going into the 14th year. The Rebbe, on Yud Aleph Nissan, is turning 119. So the Rebbe's kapitel of this year is going to be chapter 120, chapter Kuf Chaf. So please take out your Tehillim, and we're going to say all together. I'm going to say pasuk by pasuk, so this one everyone can take part of this. Open up your Tehillim on Peirik Kuf Chaf, and we're going to say it pasuk by pasuk. Shir hamalis el Adonai batzaroso likorosi vayaneni. Adonai hatzilo nafshi misfas sheker miloshen remia. Ma yiten lecha uma yosif loch loshen remia. Chitze giber shnunim im gachale resomim. O yoliki garti meshech shochanti im ohole kedor. Rabbas shochna nafshi im soine shalom. Ani shalom v'chi adaber heimo la milchama. The Rebbe has requested that every time we gather together, we should have Torah, Tefillah, and Tzedakah. Torah, we've read several passages before. Tefillah, we just said the kapitel Tehillim of Kuf Chaf. And Tzedakah, take out a few coins and go over to a pushka and put in a few coins. And this way, we are going to be able to have all the three pillars of Torah, Tefillah, and Tzedakah. In conclusion, the Rebbe makes it very clear that all these three things, and especially Tzedakah, is mekareves es hageula, brings the Geula closer. And therefore, on the day of Yud Aleph Nissan, we are going to take resolutions that we are going to continue with much more strength in all of these miftzaim that we discussed before, because this is the Rebbe's agenda. This is the last generation of Golus. This is the first generation of Geula, and we just have to get out of here. And therefore, let's all together take resolutions. On the day of a birthday is a time when, as the Rebbe explains in the Hayom Yom, it is a day of reflection. It is a day that we take resolutions. We are taking resolution to continue all these miftzaim and influence our friends, our family, all the people around us, and get out that message that we have to get out of this golus. And we're going to work with any person that we can, whatever mitzvah works for them. As I mentioned before, we have 10 mitzvahim: Torah, Tefillin, Mezuzah, Tzedakah, Sfarim, Neiris Shabbos Kodesh, lighting Shabbos candles, Kashrus, Taras HaMishpacha, family purity, getting people that everyone should have a letter in the Sefer Torah, making sure that there's Avas Yisrael, that there is love for each other, unconditional love. Take part in the learning of the daily Rambam, whether you want to do it 3 chapters a day, 1 chapter a day, or just the Sefer HaMitzvahs. The Sefer HaMitzvahs is something that anyone could do because it's written in a very short and simple fashion, the way that Rambam put it. And this way we're going to have everyone together working on one mission, and that is to get out of this Golus. Let us make a lot of nachas to our Nasi, who is a Nasi Livnei Osher, who represents the idea of pulling the whole world out of this galus, that we should be able to go straight from here to the Geula Hamitis Vashlema. So instead of saying Lashana Haba Birushalayim, this year, on Yud Aleph Nisan, we should be able to be reunited with our Rebbe through all our actions. And this year, we are going to make sure that everyone is going to have Matzah Shmura for Pesach. And this coming Shabbos, Motzei Shabbos, we are going to be in the Beis HaMikdash HaShlishi, and that is where we are going to bring our Korban Pesach. Gut Yom Tov, Gut Yom Tov, Gut Yom Tov.
Rabbi Gorelik, on behalf of the thousands of people who listened to you and tuned in via Zoom, via YouTube, via Facebook, we want to thank you for uplifting us. And thank you everyone for joining our webinar. Thank you for joining this experience. And please God, through each and every one of us resolving to just do one little thing more, may we merit the revelation of Mashiach. Will there be peace for everybody? No more sickness, no more wars, no more pandemics. May God reveal himself immediately with the revelation of Mashiach. Thank you all for joining, and have a kosher Freilich and Pesach.